This YouTube channel sold for $94,000 after just 4 months of being monetized. Here's exactly how I did it. First, I looked for the right niche and opportunity. I think of an opportunity like a vehicle. You're only going to get as far as the vehicle allows, no matter how hard you actually press the gas. And I wanted something that could make $10,000 to $50,000 per month without me actually having to be on camera so that it would actually be sellable. And so I went onto the YouTube homepage, just looked through a bunch of videos to kind of see what content that people were already making. And then I saw that this channel called Midwest Safety was making $360,000 per month. And I saw another channel, one of their competitors called Bodycam Files, doing $79,000 per month. But these channels are all a little bit bigger. They weren't really that new. And so I tried to look for a channel that was smaller or maybe a little bit newer. And I found this channel right over here that was only 6 months old and did $7.5 thousand in the last 30 days. That was the sign that I needed. Now, none of these channels had the owners in the videos themselves. This meant that these channels were actually automatable, transferable, and even sellable as well. Now, once I had the right niche and I had the opportunity, it was time to actually learn the how. Now, you can either pay with time or money. I had money, so I just paid with money. So then I found all the competitors in the space and I found all their email addresses on their page, and I made a whole list of every single channel that I could find and the email address to actually contact them. That's when I started emailing all of them. After about 13 emails, there was one channel that actually responded who was doing 5 million views every single month. And then I paid him $2,000 to hop on a 1-hour call with him. On that 1-hour call, I learned everything. I learned team structure. I learned who does what. I learned what tools to use and what systems to put in place. And I learned how to actually go viral in this niche. And looking back at it, that 1 hour probably saved me anywhere from 6 to 12 months of figuring it out on my own. And now that I had learned everything, it was now time to execute. And so I needed to build a team that could handle all the production. And he pointed me towards Upwork, and then he actually shared with me some smaller Discord communities that had the experts and the professionals that I needed to do all of the work. And now in order to go viral, the equation is very simple. You need CTR, which is click-through rate, and you need retention equals virality. This means CTR means the amount of people that actually click on your video out of 100 when it's on the homepage, as an example. And retention means once they click, how much of that video are they actually watching? What percentage of it? 50%, 40%, 10%, or 100%. Because click-through rate is my area of expertise, I went ahead and I kept control of the titles and of the thumbnails, but I hired the very best editor that I could to be able to keep the retention high. And then once I had the team established, it was now time to post. I posted my first 3 videos and we got 7,000 views, which was not too bad actually, but it was definitely not enough to make money. And so we went ahead and posted another 10 videos on the channel as well. After uploading those 10 videos, nothing went viral. Everything had stalled. And so it was time to actually look at the data in order to be able to optimize and tweak from there. Looking at the data, we saw that the click-through rate on average was 5%, and we saw that the retention was 30%. And we saw that all of the views were actually going down because our first video had gotten about 5,000 views, but our following videos got less and less and less and less. That told me something very important, was that both our packaging and our videos were off. So then we investigated the audience, and what we found was that 50% of our audience were above the ages of 45. And we found that 40% of all of our viewers were actually watching on their phones. That changed everything. Because see, now the thumbnails that we had been using were actually too small to be able to see on a phone. And for an audience that's above the ages of 45 on average, they prefer much slower editing, not this very fast pace where they get a little bit confused and they feel overwhelmed and then they go ahead and actually click off. And we also had to make our titles a lot more shorter and a lot more grounded. And so we went ahead and we made those changes, and the very next video got 389,000 views. And that also went ahead and got our channel monetized. From there, we kept using the same formula over and over and over again, and we kept going viral back to back to back. And now, during this time, I also had my email address on our YouTube channel page. And then one day we got an email from a buyer reaching out to see if we were actually open to selling. At that point, I wasn't really thinking about it, but I was open-minded, so I asked him to make us an offer. He offered us $75,000. Now that number to me, kind of arbitrary, so I asked him to actually go ahead and justify, how did you get to $75,000? What was his rationale? Now, he didn't give us a real formula as to how he actually got to that number, but he was definitely very interested. And so I kept answering his questions over and over and over again, and I was okay with that because I knew that the more questions he asked, the more invested he'll actually get. Once he had clarity and was already envisioning himself owning the channel, that was the right time to go ahead and actually negotiate the number. And so what I did is I did a slight takeaway. I explained why I couldn't do $75,000 in a way that he would actually understand: taxes. And so I counted at $94,000 and he said yes. Something very interesting to note was a few weeks later, I actually got a higher offer from another buyer who was interested in acquiring the channel. He offered $110,000 cash, and he would actually let me keep 15% of the channel remaining, which meant that I would actually get paid 15% of the revenue every single month. That taught me a very important lesson. Always keep a list of buyers and create competition before selling. And so that concludes how this channel sold for $94,000. Subscribe for more practical YouTube business videos. And if you want to build a profitable YouTube channel, I put everything I know down in the link below.